A panel of federal judges has thrown out an earlier ruling that had ordered a Wood County chemical plant to stop exceeding its pollution limits in the Ohio River. Our Chase Campbell has the latest on a lawsuit against the Chemours company.
The Chemours Washington Works facility has been discharging the chemical HFPODA, known under the trade name Gen X, into the Ohio River for years. The compound belongs to the PFAS class of synthetic chemicals, sometimes colloquially referred to as forever chemicals. Court records show the plant recorded dozens of permit violations between 2021 and 2024, in some cases releasing the chemical at levels more than 1,700% above its legal limit. In December 2024, the West Virginia Rivers Coalition filed a federal suit under the Clean Water Act. Last August, U.S. District Judge Joseph Goodwin ordered Chemours to stop the excess discharges immediately, calling the situation, quote, simple and all too familiar, unquote. But this week, a unanimous three-judge panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals vacated that injunction. The court ruled that while citizens do have the right to sue polluters, Judge Goodwin made legal and factual errors in finding that the plaintiff would suffer irreparable harm, a required element for an injunction to stand. Chemours responded to the ruling, saying the company will continue to operate in compliance with its permit limits, and noting that it has consistently done so since the injunction was issued last summer. Eric Engel, the chair of Parkersburg-based environmental group Mid-Ohio Valley Climate Action and an original plaintiff in the suit, says he's disappointed by the appeals court ruling.
To see even a panel of judges overturn a ruling like the district judges in this case and toss out an injunction against something like this is very disheartening, but also not at all unexpected.
Engel says he's troubled by the appeals court's finding that Chemours pollution doesn't constitute irreparable harm, comparing the company's Gen X pollution to the Washington Works plant's lengthy history of polluting the Ohio River with PFOA, also called C8, a chemical linked to numerous negative health impacts.
There's no reason to think that this PFAS chemical is any less harmful, less toxic when ingested at almost any concentration in our water. And so to say that irreparable harm is not done by exceeding state and federal pollution limits with these toxic chemicals into a waterway that is a drinking water source for 5 million people, I just have no idea what kind of logic that is.
Engel says he isn't confident in Chemours remaining compliant in the future, saying he doesn't consider the company a responsible corporate partner.
I don't trust them not to continue to violate those permits until they are forced by the courts at some point to stop permanently.
The West Virginia Rivers Coalition says the case isn't over. The group intends to pursue civil penalties when the case returns to district court. The group says the injunction already achieved its goal of pushing Chemours to change how it operates and expects Chemours to remain in compliance going forward. Chase Campbell, WTAP News.